Starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Alrighty, hello and good morning or good afternoon to everyone, no matter where you're coming in from. Greatly appreciate you coming out today for today's webinar. My name is Drew English. I'm the program coordinator here at the Exit Planning Institute, and I am with our speaker today, Julie Keys from Key Strategies. She's going to be talking about professional collaboration, why and how it works. Just a brief introduction to Julie. She is the founder/owner of Key Strategies, and she's also the president of our Twin Cities metro area chapter out there in the Twin Cities market. For those who don't know Julie, she is one of our highly recommended speakers and leaders here at the Exit Planning Institute. If you were at our 2017 summit out in Scottsdale, Arizona, you know that Julie actually won our Leader of the Year award for the 2017 Exit Planning Excellence in Exit Planning Awards. So congratulations to Julie again on that. Just a few housekeeping notes from me before we get jumped into it. The webinar is being recorded today. I will be sending the recording out to everyone in attendance later today, so just look out for an email from me with that link for that. And then also there is a chat box on the drop-down menu of GoToWebinar on your screen. If you have any questions during the presentation, we ask that you type the question in there. That will alert me that you have a question, and then I will then alert Julie that we do have a question. She could go ahead and field that for you. But with that, I will go ahead and turn the presentation over to Julie, and we'll get rocking and rolling here. So Julie, it's all yours.
All right. Well, thank you, Drew. Hi, everybody. I'm so glad that you're here today. I'm here to talk about professional collaboration, why and how it works. It's been a passion of mine, actually, as a professional advisor for 3 or 4 years now. I've been really focusing on collaboration, and I got to tell you that it has really been one of the best professional decisions that I've ever made for my practice. As Drew said, I do value growth work with business owners, and I also do transition planning. And I like to refer to exit planning and transition planning together, because many times when an owner is in transition, it may not be an exit. And so we need to be mindful that there's still a need for a team whenever they're in some kind of critical transition, whether it's a partner buyout, whether it's a private equity recap, you know, maybe it's a roll-up. I had a couple clients right now going through a roll-up, growth by acquisition. But, you know, those are all transition situations, and they really do need a good, strong team to help them through each single one. So as we know, as business advisors, it really is always changing for our owners. And sadly, we also know what the statistics are with the baby boomers who are reaching retirement age, and the fact that, you know, through the surveys that we've done with EPI, that they're just not ready. And they're not ready for a lot of reasons. We're not quite sure when this wave is going to hit. You know, there's schools of thought that predict this and that, but suffice it to say that we as advisors really do need to be ready on many fronts. And the changes, of course, that they're just constantly barraged with, these owners, both on a micro and a macro scale. And we really just can't even calculate what this plethora of businesses on the market is going to do for our economy. But advisors of the future, I really feel like it's up to us to do what we can to make that positive impact in the lives of our business owner clients. And the best way that I think we should be doing that is by collaborating as a team. And, you know, as advisors, I think we become advisors because we're independent minded and because we tend to be mavericks, and we work really well on our own. But yet, you know, at the same time, it's important for us to remember that we do not have all the answers ourselves, and we really do need others. And there's, you know, some resistance to that. I think that, you know, we think about what the obstacles might be if I'm going to form a team. You know, I myself, when I was thinking about this, I was thinking, well, I'm a referral-driven person, but what if I have people on my team that really aren't very referral-driven, and the reciprocity isn't there? And I got over that over a small period of time, a short period of time actually, because I started focusing more on the actual person that I wanted on my team. And so I had this process in my head of how I would identify someone that I really thought would make a good team member for me and I for them. And it all started with making sure that our values aligned. And so when you're in the process of choosing people that you need for your team and other disciplines, I think that that's where you start. Because if you've got values that align, it's much easier then to move forward with decision making and move forward with, business philosophies aligning and things like that. So, and having a team to navigate all the exit planning, of course, is complicated because exit planning is complicated, and we know that for sure. And we really don't, any one of us, have all the answers. And I'm sure that you've run into advisors in the past in different disciplines who kind of act like they do, and clearly they're not really the kind of team player that I'm talking about here. I really do truly believe that there is more than enough business to go around for all of us, and I'm really not worried about whether someone gets to work with a client over me. Because I know that the next one that comes along, it's going to be a fit and it's going to work and it's going to be great. And that philosophy has really helped and worked for me in my business. I never have a shortage of clients, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how that works with the group that I'm in. But I just don't think that we do our clients any favors when we're ignorant of what the other professions, that are a part of the exit plan and the impact that they can make. I think it's important. If you've gone through the SEPA program, you already know what the other disciplines do that are not part of your own wheelhouse, and how important it is to have them be a part of the mix. Starting right away with that wealth manager and how important that role is, and then moving along into the importance of the CPA and the importance of the investment banker, the estate planning attorney, the M&A attorney, even sometimes the family business counselor has to be a part of that team, and for certain someone who can quarterback. So this was actually a question that was asked of the Alliance of Merger and Acquisition Advisors, the AMAA. You've probably heard of that organization. Maybe you also know that Chris Snyder was chosen as their Thought Leader of the Year earlier this year, which was really awesome. And so they surveyed the members of this group to ask them what would their likelihood be of collaborating. And I have a colleague and friend who actually runs the local chapter of AMAA, and we'll talk about that in a little bit too. But she and I were part of this survey together, and we actually spoke on team collaboration at the last AMAA conference. And comparing that particular event to the one that we had done prior 6 months, that one was even better. Like, people were more dialed in, people were more interested. And as you can see, the reluctancy goes down as the likelihood of reciprocity and sharing a process goes up. So if you're thinking about how do I do this, I think that having some kind of a process is really important, and making sure that everyone understands that the referrals stay as much as you can within your team. It's not always going to be that way 100% of the time, and that has to also be the understanding, that because you're going to have other advisors that and want to work with, but primarily you've got your go-to people. And what are the benefits of that? Well, there are a lot of them, but I've only listed a few because I think that they're probably the most important ones. And just from being an independent advisor, you're always like trying to balance having enough business in your pipeline and working with clients in case study and doing the business development to keep your pipeline full. So you're constantly running around. I know this because I do it, not as much as I used to, by the way, because of my collaboration, but just, trying to, manage a case study and go get some more clients and back and forth and back and forth. So when you do have these team members who are really dialed into who you are and the importance of your role, it really does help with that that team approach, that co-branding, that co-marketing that you can do. And then it really is the best of both worlds for not only the people on the team, but also the business owner, because they're the ones who really win, right? When you've got a really good team, and I'll give you a case in point. I have a client of mine now who is in the throes of working with an investment banker. They've got 2 or 3 NDAs signed now, just as of the last 2 weeks when they launched it. And this particular owner was planning to sell internally to the senior vice president, who, after a while, and I got to know him, just really had this feeling that there was a lot of hesitation and not really comfortable with taking on the risk and borrowing the money to buy the business. Although he wanted to stay in it and he wanted to have a stake, he just didn't know if he really wanted to have the whole thing. And so I shared this with the owner and told the owner, I said, I think that it would be a good idea for us to start looking at other options. And so we assembled the team, got the CPA together, the financial advisor together. The only person on the team that I would say I brought in myself was the estate planning attorney and the investment banker, but that was enough to get everybody else going and rolling. And now this owner is looking at 2.5 times as much for his business, putting it out there versus selling it internally. And that is a huge difference. I mean, what a difference that's going to make for him in his future. It's really, really edifying. And of course, then there's a shorter learning curve, right? Because we don't have all the answers, but collectively, I think that we get pretty close. It saves the owner a lot of money, because if you have an attorney working on something, or a CPA, or even someone like me who doesn't really know anything about exit planning, maybe I do value growth, but I don't do exit planning, and I'm involved in the business to grow it, then the learning curve is a lot longer. And when the learning curve is longer, it generally costs the owner more money for these advisors to figure it out. So when we understand and know each other, and we've got a system for communicating, and we have a familiarity with how each other operates, it really does streamline the process big time. And then of course there's the whole competency thing, sharing services, and the strength in numbers philosophy, which I have always believed in. And so, we're dealing, of course, with this business owner conundrum. We're all dealing with it with all of our clients, and we will be. And it has a lot to do with that softer side of exit, where they are really afraid to lose, these intangibles, their lifestyle, their identity. Who am I? How am I relevant after I have exited my business? The freedom that goes along with owning a business, those season tickets and company cars and trips and whatever else they expense on the business sometimes, that could very well go away, or just change. And then the control, especially if they're going to stay on. And these are all worries. And that prestige, sometimes with just owning a business, sometimes there's a little bit of prestige that goes along with that too. So I think that it's really important for us to have someone on the team who understands the psychology of exits and how to deal with these things that the owner is going through, because many of the disciplines just don't want to go there, aren't equipped to do it, don't have time. But somebody on the team's got to be able to take the owner by the hand, if you will, and help them think these things through so they don't sabotage their own deal. So we all know that most of the disciplines are necessary for a successful transition, but not all of them are going to be players. And this was actually a question that was taken from the Exit Planning Institute's State of Owner Readiness Survey, which we did here in the Twin Cities in December, rolled out the results in March of this year. And this is one of the questions that was asked. And primarily, as you can see, the main advisor on the team for transition, as according to these owners who answered the survey, was their CPA. And then additionally, there was another question that asked, so who would you say is your most trusted advisor on your transition team? And again, the CPA came up as the most trusted advisor. So I think that it's probably something that would be common in a lot of the different markets in the United States. The CPA definitely is someone who the business owner really truly needs from many, many aspects. And I think that it's important for us to understand the importance of that particular role. But knowing that, also knowing that we need everyone else to be a part of it as well. And if you can have a CPA as part of the transition team, that I think just adds a great deal more value to the overall experience for everybody, because the CPA's got it all dialed in. Like, they can be the quarterback, they can keep the communication lines open, and coordinate with the owner and make sure that they are feeling comfortable at how everything is going. At least that's how I do it. And then there's times when we don't need everybody that's on our team, whether the owner thinks they need that person or not. And that can be a problem too. I'm sure that that's an obstacle that you've run into, where maybe you really feel, maybe you're a financial advisor, or maybe you're an M&A attorney, and you really believe that this particular client of yours could really use some help with growing the value of their business, working with someone in value growth, working with someone who does exit planning coordination, but they just aren't going to do it. They just don't want to pay the fees. There's a lot of resistance with the fees. They get scared. You know, somebody's got to talk them off a cliff. And we don't want them to get hung up on this, though. I think that we need to keep pushing forward and you know, keep encouraging and, you know, like I said, keep that team communication going. When I run into this, this issue with fees, one of my first things that I say, and I say this every time it comes up, I just say, you know, I've run and owned many businesses in my life, and I understand how you feel about paying these fees. But I also know that when you run businesses, you spend a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of sleepless nights, and there's been a lot of sacrifice over the years. Why in the world would you want to go on the cheap with like probably the biggest financial decision that you will ever have to make in your life? You know, you got one shot to do this right. And usually when I bring it up that way, that's when they start nodding their head, and that's when they go, you know, you're right. Because really, when it all boils down to it, what's the difference between paying a few $1,000s extra for some fees to some advisors that can really help you versus a couple multiple, right, that you leave on the table because you just didn't have the right advice? That's just a huge span of difference. And, you know, when you start thinking about that too, and helping them understand that, you know, there's options that maybe we haven't even considered, but we do need to have the advice of others, that's when they really their eyes start opening and they go, you know, you're right. At least it never hurts to talk. And that's another thing that I usually will say to try to lead them into having these conversations with other people on the team or that need to be on the team, is that it never hurts to talk. So that's one thing, that's one agreement that I have with everyone that I refer business to, is I need to know that that first consultation that you have with a client that I refer is going to be no fee, complimentary. You know, it's just like a fact-finding, you know, getting to know you kind of meeting where you can determine whether it's a fit, whether you can help them, whether they like you. And then if that's the case and it works out and you end up being retained, then that's cool. But I just need to know that that first one is going to be, you know, off the clock. So going to market. So I've got a team, like I had told you before. I have an investment banker, I've got an accounting firm, a law firm. The law firm actually covers all the aspects. You know, it covers M&A, it covers IP, it covers business, it covers estate. And then we've got an accounting firm. I said an accounting firm, but we have a CPA firm and an accounting firm. So their services don't overlap. The accounting firm actually works with small businesses and does like contract CFO type things, but they don't do taxes. And they don't do valuation, and the other firm does those things. So it's really a good combo. And then we've got myself and another person who does value growth and exit planning, and she also does M&A. She runs the AM&A chapter here in the Twin Cities, and so that's our group. We meet every 2 weeks, and we have an agenda for every single meeting. Right now, we've gone through the whole process of defining our value proposition. We've gone through the process of defining our target market. And now we're in the process of figuring out the content for our website so that we can go to market and start doing some presentations and webinars together, and figuring out what our initial investment is going to be as a team. So I'm not saying that that's how you have to do it. I'm just giving you an example of what you can do. So, you know, we kind of talked a little bit earlier about what some obstacles might be. And I think that us as advisors, I think that we have them in our head, our own obstacles. And so, you know, when it comes to like worrying about being referred back, worrying about our reputation and making sure there's competency there, it really boils down to making sure that you trust the people that are on your team and that you've vetted them well, you've worked with them in the past, and you start having those initial conversations, and eventually you make it something intentional. And so it kind of has to go in that order. I think you got to walk first before you run. I do think that there's definitely a lot of opportunity out there for us to be able to exercise this strategy. And again, you know, kind of talking a little bit more about that execution. And once you've got that team assembled, how do you go about, you know, working it? And it's kind of like, I guess I could liken it to a mini strategic plan. Okay, so if you do any strategic planning, you know that you've got to have like your big goals, and then you dial them down and eat that elephant one bite at a time. So you got the big goals, then you got the medium goals, then you got the small, 90-day rocks or 90-day sprints, and then you got your 30-day to-do list. And so that's what we've done, and we've each taken a role in that setup. And so where it says here defining roles, it isn't just defining the roles of, well, we already know what we do, right? With our own expertise, we know what that role entails. But when I say defining the role, it's defining your role in the group and what are you going to be committed to doing, because it can't all be done by one person. That is not a team. It has to be everybody all together taking on a section, because then when you do that, it gets done faster. There's more accountability between. And then when we get together and we meet and we talk about these things, we also go over our pipeline. And so, I'll talk about prospects I'm working on. We've actually even brought in case studies where we'll say, okay, well, here's the thing. I just started working with this client, actually just did this last week, and I sent it all to everybody ahead of time. I gave them all the information that they needed on the company without giving them the name, and because they're not retained yet by the team, it's a new thing. But I said, I want to know right now, based on this story, where do you see the holes, the gaps? How could you help? What would your expertise, what would your advice be on this particular situation? And, of course, I said true life case study, right? And it's a can of worms. I mean, we got so many things going on at so many different angles with this company. I'm not even sure how we're going to be able to exit this owner, but we're working on it. We're getting it started. And I'm using the team approach to get it done. And we follow the EPI Value Acceleration process because it works and because it's simple. It's easy to understand. And if you're not familiar with the Value Acceleration process, I would encourage you to get familiar with it. If you haven't gone through the SEPA program, you can still become a member of a chapter in your market. You can still have some access to some of the tools on the website if you become a member at that point, or you can even get the certification if you didn't want to do the full blown. But this really does work, and it really is important for everyone on the team to be rowing in the same direction, understand where they fall into the continuum. And sometimes, they kind of go back and forth. Like, say, for instance, you got your financial advisor is going to be there right at the very beginning, but they're also going to be, checking in during the process. And of course, at the end, they'll be there. They'll be with the owner the whole time, really, even afterwards, right? Some of us will be there during the process, but not after. And some of us won't be. And that's another whole life planning question. The owner's got to figure out, like, who's on my team now? Who am I going to need after my transition? How is that relationship going to change? And the advisors themselves also need to ask those questions and get that figured out too. So I do really like this process, and I recommend that you use it if you're not already. And that's all I have for today. I wanted to keep this short and sweet because it's a Friday. And I hope that you all have a wonderful weekend. And I appreciate you being here and listening. Hopefully you were able to gain some and got some takeaways out of this. And I'm here to answer some questions if anybody has any.
Perfect. Thank you, Julie. I appreciate that. Like Julie said, if you have any questions, please go ahead and type those into the chat box at this time. We'll just give a few minutes here to see if anything comes in. But while we wait for that, I just want to thank Julie for spending some time with us today. And it's a busy week for everybody, but it's as we're winding down here, I definitely appreciate coming on for a half hour or so and
absolutely, my pleasure.
What we have, so greatly appreciate that. But if you have any questions, go ahead and type those in now. All right, so nothing's coming in, but if you guys have any questions you want to take offline, you're more welcome to send either myself or Julie an email. We'd be more happy to answer those questions for you. Again, I will be sending out the recording later today, so look for an email from me with the recording from this webinar. And with that, I hope everyone has a good rest of their Friday, a good weekend, and we'll talk and we'll get together soon. So Julie, thank you very much, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Drew.